Welcome everyone to With Hearts Wide Open, where we're learning to listen to our hearts, do what we love, and change the world. I'm your host, Kathy Forrest, founder of Celestial Forest Institute, and it is my great delight to be here with my dear friend, Jules Wingfield. Welcome, Jules.
Hey, good to see you, Kathy. Really good.
Jules is a leading light in her field, where she aspires to be a powerful catalyst for human evolution through her deep embodied wisdom, using her gifts to create a world of environmental harmony, spiritual alignment, and equality. Jules has been referred to as a natural group leader, a soul alchemist, an earth steward, a womb wisdom keeper, a high priestess, and a wild force of nature. She aspires to be all these things, but above all, to be an educator and a catalyst for deep transformation. With a natural gift for creating transformational fields of energy within which people come to deeper awakening and embodied love, Jules brings to her work a rich alchemy of embodied earthy wisdom, clarity, creativity, fluid sensuality, maverick humor, fierce love, and passion to co-create a world we all want to be a part of. Jules believes that integrity and generosity of heart are fundamentals to creating a safe and healing place from which all people from all walks of life can begin their transformation. Jules has been inspired and supported for over 20 years by many teachers, both human and non-human. From each of these, she's received a piece of the tapestry of her evolution and guidance on how to live a more sacred and be a more sacred and respectful being on the planet. Her work is well known to be unique and is widely recognized for its earthy approach to the evolution of humanity. It is inspired by indigenous traditions and the teaching of her native Celtic lands, embedded in intuitive connection with its nature, its ancestral pathways, and the energetic interconnection of the web of life, bringing sacredness to the ordinary and showing how ordinary things become sacred. Jules brings many varied experiences and methods to her work, including earth-based indigenous spirituality, sacred ecology, conscious relationship, and sacred sexuality, grief and gratitude, ancient feminine-based womb wisdom teachings, and somatic movement and embodied meditation practices. Jules is deeply blessed to live, work within the context of wild nature in the middle of the ancient forest of Dean, where she has birthed her lifelong vision, Earth Heart. This vision is to steward a piece of wild land to help people to connect back to their essential, wild, and interconnected nature. So in keeping with that, this topic sounds so juicy. The feral feminine heart. You know, I think my mother really thought that I had one of those. So what do you mean by feral? I know what I
mean. Yes, what do I mean by feral? And of course, it's so easy to fall into this sort of stereotype of some sort of, Hollywood version or Disney version, or even in the spiritual movement, some idea of what this feral woman looks like. And, of course, she might look like she's got furs in her hair and she's covered in mud and she's, crawling around the fire like Baba Yaga, eating soil and coal. But actually, and that could be an expression of the feral feminine. But if we were to do all of those actions, but not be connected inside, then it's not the feral feminine.
Right. So
the root of it has to be this deep connection between us and the web of life. Between, the earth, the creatures, the beings, and our pathway to that is through our body, and more specifically through our womb.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this umbilical cord that goes from our womb straight into the earth. And all we need to do really is receive and drink from her. And that feralness, you know, it's like, it's so easy to think, oh, I got to be this wild, expressive, kind of crazy woman. But actually, feral could look like nothing on the outside to anyone, you know, watching me walk through the forest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about the connection that I have in that moment to my absolute unbounded wildness and freedom, like this sense that I can express myself however I want, without shame, without apology, without some conforming idea of what that should look like. Yeah, without self-judgment, that is really rooted in the present moment of what is actually moving through me. Like, how often as women do we do that? Do we, because we feel this impulse all the time, we feel this impulse for something, what I call the feminish, to speak feminish, to express in feminish. But within a flash of a nanosecond, we've packed it away and gone, well, what would be an acceptable way to express myself now? You know, what would be a diluted version of that? What would be a pretty version of that? You know, what would be, you know, a polite version of that? And there's something, so it's like a bubbling spring that comes up from our womb, from that taproot in the earth, and it's moving through us all the time. I don't see that women have to learn to become feral. What I see is that we have to learn to just remove the censor.
Yeah.
The censor that is there that goes, no, don't do that.
Right.
That's risky.
Right.
That's risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So why do you think being wild and feral is so important for women right now?
Oh, I mean, okay, we don't want to go to the political level of what's going on in the world, but I kind of feel like we need to go there at some level.
Right.
You know, my take on it is that the entire issue with what's going on in the world is because we have lost that connection to the wild, to the web of life, to the feminine, and the feminine in all of us, to life as being fundamentally sacred. And we've moved into a paradigm where it's about domination and control of everything that is wild and free, and everything that is a threat to us. The tigers, the lions, the wolves, the snakes, you know, anything that is a threat to our existence, we have killed or dominated. Yeah. And anything that can be manipulated to be in service to our human superior evolution, we have done. And for me, all that really needs to happen, and it's like, if you disconnect a human being, before we get to the women, if you disconnect a human being from the fact that we are nature, it becomes very, very easy to destroy it. Without feeling anything, without feeling an impact or a consequence. So we're at a point now where it feels so much to actually plug back in. It's like, oh, if I plug back in, I'm going to feel all the pain of everything. And that's too much. I can't handle that. Yeah. But that taproot from the womb that goes down into the earth, that's a nourishment. That's like sacred food for the womb, for our bodies, for the feminine, for all of that nourishes our being and gives us the strength to bring through this feminish wisdom. So it's a coming home. It's not a learning something new. It's an unlearning of the last 500 years, where we basically learned to not value anything of the feminine. So there's creativity, sexuality, anything of the body, anything of the mystery, anything of our feeling capacity, anything to do with our wombs or menstruation. All of these are aspects of the feminine, and they've been kind of put as a sort of sideline. Well, you know, they're not the really important things, but you can do them as a hobby if you want.
Right. Yeah.
Feelings are to be transcended. You know, the menstrual cycle is simply to make babies. Creativity is something you do as a luxury. You know, beauty isn't essential. It's just, you know, let's make everything functional, and everything is rational, logical, you know, broken down to its component parts. And it doesn't account for the fact that everything is connected to everything.
Yeah.
And everything I do, every movement of my hand, I am in a dance with creation. I am in a dance with the web of life. There is nothing that isn't affecting something else. And in a way, that's the feralness that we want to try and somehow catch a hold of, because it's right there all the time, but we separate ourselves from this idea that I'm affecting everything.
So I think that some people listening to this may go, well, I live in the city. There's no way I can be wild or connect with nature because I don't live in nature. Do they have to? How can they connect if they don't live in a place where they even, some people don't even have a yard, you know, how do they do it?
Yeah. And I think that's such an important question. And I feel like there's two strands to that question. One is, I do think we need to find ways in our life to spend time in nature. End of, non-negotiable. Because it's not until we do that. It's like if you're working in an office block, 50 stories up, making decisions about what trees should be cut down in Brazil. Easy to do. Easy, because you're so completely disconnected from that. Whereas if you're standing in that forest and you contemplate the idea of cutting down all the trees, now you're going to feel a relationship to that. Yeah. So because as women, we've been so uprooted, we're like uprooted trees under the patriarchy. We've been so uprooted. It's like it becomes abstract to feel ourselves as nature. It's like, as you say, I get the concept, but I live in 4 brick walls, you know, with a plastic kitchen and my, you know, all of the different things. So first of all, we do need to find a way to be in nature. And I really believe that's non-negotiable, no matter what is happening, because it's the soul food. It's the food that meets our bodies, that meets our wounds, that gives us the capacity to carry on getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning and tending to the children, and getting up at 6 o'clock and going to work and doing all of that stuff. Like, nature is the roast dinner. It really, really is. So we underestimate that. Meanwhile, until we get there, to recognize that our wombs are a direct microcosm of the macrocosm of the cosmos. Our wombs are cyclical, and they directly mirror the cycles of life. They mirror the seasons, they mirror the cycles of the moon, it mirrors the cycle of the sun, it mirrors the seasons, it mirrors the entire web of life, it mirrors the elements. And as we move through our cycle every month, and as we move through the life arc as women, we are constantly being given an invitation to feel nature, the cosmos, within our bodies, actually within our bodies. So yes, we can go out there to nature, and that is super, super important, because if we're immersed in it, we've got to work much harder to separate from it. It's like, you know, if we get muddy feet, it's like, right, now I know where I am in nature. So the other pathway in is within and deep into ourselves, and deep inside into this womb space, by being in intimacy with our menstrual cycle, with the rhythmical, cyclical rhythms of our womb. And that has been, you know, denied in us for thousands of years. And we're just beginning to reclaim it now, and understanding how, you know, they've even done, I saw some interesting stuff around, they've done some research on working with young women who were struggling with depression and mental health, and working with them to work with their menstrual blood, to give their menstrual blood to the earth rather than, you know, use a tampon, flush it away and all of that, with incredible results, with incredible results. This, you know, it's like to understand the power that is inherent here in this womb. It is where our power sits. It's not in the Bible. It's not out there. It's like everything we need to guide us as women through our life is right here. And it's simply about how do we listen? How do we learn to listen to these rhythms and trust them? Because we're constantly being given a message and we dismiss and we dismiss and we dismiss. And then we get to premenstrual and we feel like we're going crazy and we feel like we're going mad and all the emotions are too much, and we're either turning it in on ourselves, being like self-persecuting, or we're turning it out there and just biting everybody's heads off. You know, but that time in the cycle, it's like we take a truth serum and the veils of illusion of this world are like pulled back, and we're there, we can see life for what it is, we can see truth for what it is. But because that hasn't been honored, women actually think that they're crazy at this time of the month. But actually, they're their most sane time. But we need to learn how to bring that with heart, because what's happened from our disconnect and our pain is we're getting the mirror of truth, but the delivery has become toxic and disconnected through the hate, through the disconnect, through the abandonment, through the terror. So that's how it comes out. It either comes out in our anger and our fear and our self-persecution, our external persecution. So we've got to bring this heart and this womb together so that we can bring that truth with love, because when it's brought with love, it can be received. When it isn't brought with love, it's very, very difficult to hear truth.
Yeah. So I would imagine, and you know, I can feel as you speak of this, I can feel the wildness of it. And I'm having this kind of tickle in the back of my mind going, if we ever allowed ourselves to awaken to that part of ourselves, it would be very hard not to listen and not to live our vision, live our mission, do what we came here to do. And do you see, or in your work, do you see women who that's the struggle? That's why they turn it off, because they'd have to change, or they feel like they'd have to change up so many things.
Oh, my life. So I've been running the feminine leadership program for 20 years now, initiation, and pretty much every woman arrives there like that. You know, if I, you know, really express what I'm feeling, I am going to be locked up. Yeah. Or at best, I'm going to be asked to rationalize it, write a dissertation on it, you know, give it some logical ground, give it a narrative, you know. But what if we spoke feminish, and what if that feminish was the language of the feral wild body, like we just spoke in movement? What if we spoke in sound? What if we spoke through our sex, you know, just with our breath, that erotic flow? What if our power was speaking through our feelings without having to justify or quantify? And that, for me, is real feminine leadership. It isn't this sort of, hey, I'm the expert on this, and I'm going to come on this conference and I'm going to be an expert on this subject, and, you know, blah, 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 blah. It's not. We have to blast all of that out the water and trust this that wants to come through our body. That isn't rational. It isn't rational.
Nope.
And we say it like that's a bad thing, but it's not. You know, there's this idea that we have to have a rational, intelligent, cognitive answer. And it doesn't live there. It doesn't live there. It lives in the wisdom of the body. It lives in the wisdom of the earth and this web of life. And we are literally channels for that, literally conduits for that. But that is terrifying, because we've had 5,000 years of every time we stick our head above the pulpit and speak from that place, we're locked up, killed, or if that doesn't work, we start to develop our masculine, because that's a safer place to live in our world.
Yeah.
And it's profoundly, profoundly painful.
Yeah.
So there's something for me about this feral family that is willing to make a mess, is willing to be vulnerable. I mean, what leaders out there in the world demonstrate good leadership through vulnerability?
Right.
No, very, very few. Very, very few. I mustn't crack. I mustn't, you know, show any vulnerability. I mustn't make a mistake. You know, I have to articulate, I have to have good English grammar. And there's something about, if I look back over my facilitation years, the times where, you know, I've been with a group and, you know, we're cruising along and I'm thinking, hey, you know, I'm pretty good at this stuff, you know, this seems to be going quite well, you know, and then suddenly something happens and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't got a bloody clue what I'm doing here now. I don't know what to do. I'm out of my depth. I've taken the boat too far out. And you know, and in that moment, I kind of just want to leave. I'll just leave, run away, you know, and in those moments where I've had the courage to go, okay, everyone, let's just stop. Let's just sit down. Okay, women, I got to say, I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like a total charlatan in this moment and I'm lost. I'm not in my body. I'm not in my feelings. I've clung onto some idea of what I think I should be doing and looking like I should know what I'm talking about. And actually, I'm really lost. And I totally accept that you're probably just going to feel massively unsafe in this space right now. Every single time without exception. Because there's something of the authenticity and the vulnerability that is modeling this freedom, not have to be in this top-down system, and that actually I'm trusting the fact that actually none of us bloody know anything.
Yeah.
There is no knowing to be had. It's about experiencing life. It's about experiencing history. And she is constantly pulling the rug out from under us. Every time we think we can cling on to something, go, right, okay, I think I've got a handle on this now. Deep sea dive deeper, sister. Go a bit deeper. You're not gone deep enough. Yeah? You're not trusting enough. You're trying to control now.
Yeah.
So I've learned by fire, you know, my own process around leading from the feminine. And I've come from a very masculine, you know, my essence as a child. I mean, I came into this world with a deeply feminine essence, so deeply feminine that it was too much to be in this world. So I kind of put like a layer of masculine armor around me because that meant I could survive and cope in the world. Yeah. And my journey has been to literally, with a crowbar, like crack that armor off. And it's not been easy. It's like when I feel the fear and I'm not trusting, I resort to my masculine. And it's just trusting. Can I trust the unknown and that my body is just pulling something through now? And even if I don't understand what it is, I trust that I can be a container for whatever it is that wants to flow through.
Wow. Yeah, that separation from our bodies is like, it's the hinge pin. It's when we aren't separate, when we're separated from our bodies, then we don't trust anything. And so I think for all women, trusting life comes from trusting your body. And we've been in, like you said, 5,000 years of not being able to do that. So I know that you said you had a poem you wanted to read. to us. Would this be a good place to put?
Yes, yes, this poem is so beautiful because it just speaks so well to what we're talking about. It's called The Feminine is Here, and it's by Chelan Harkin. The feminine is here to crack open your body and finally release the poison of every ancient uncleansed wound. The feminine is here to crack open your old ideologies and shoot new life through you like a seed, hard and closed for so many years and suddenly kissed into transformation by the great destruction of light. The feminine is here to pull you from the measured, surveyed land at the edge of the wild forest of your dreams and finally toss you into the mapless territory of your heart. Mm-hmm. The feminine is here to lay your impressive certificates of learning at the feet of inner knowing, to pluck you from the discipline ship of an outward master and lay you at the altar of your inner truth, to activate this inner truth that has long been waiting, latent, and so eager to erupt from your soul. Mm. The feminine is here to remind you that God can live in the earth, in your hips, in the deepest shadows, that she is planted like a wild rose in the darkest furrows of your pain, to reteach you to mother your frailties rather than dominate them, and bring the wound from exile into embrace. The feminine is here to bring you home just as you are now, to undo conditions around enoughness, to undo every patriarchal corset clinched around your voice and spirit and return you to the full belly of your sacred breath. The feminine is here to reunite tenderness with power, to help you source this from the great hidden sea within, and from you to feel the intimacy of the mystery pulsing her embodied song through the rivers of your blood and back to the holy ocean of your heart. The feminine is here to tell us in no uncertain terms we are carrying new wisdom, old wisdom, a gestation of the mystery in the womb of our consciousness, and a great never before seen beauty is soon due to be born.
Mm. Oh, so beautiful. So I am sure everyone listening to this is going, yeah, she's right, she's right, she's right. And I'm still scared to death. Yeah. What would you say to them? How can they move into this in a way that it can take root?
Yeah. So the one fundamental key to all of this is we can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. We can't do it alone. As long as we, because that has been the success of the patriarchal system, of which we all, even as women, have a patriarchal, person inside who's busy, towing the line. Mm-hmm. The patriarchal system most succeeded in disconnecting women is by disconnecting them from the earth and disconnecting them from each other. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine walking down a city street, being this free and wild, spontaneous feminine on your own, I mean, you can imagine how that's going to play out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What if you had 400 women now moving down the street together, being their untamed feminine?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Completely different landscape. Yeah. Now the people who are observing, now they're the vulnerable ones.
Right.
It completely flips. They're now the vulnerable ones going, whoa, oh my God, what is this? Yeah. Can't lock up 400 women.
Right.
Obviously, we don't have the luxury of 400 women, but we do have the possibility to connect to women and support each other in these ways. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in the work, a woman will be in circle and a woman will, it's like she's exploring something and she's trying to sort of find her way down. And I can hear there's this silent scream that's deafening, that she's not making this sound that just really wants to come from her. She's like, I can't make this sound. I can't do it. Like the shame, the fear, the terror, she can't do it. So sometimes what we'll do is we'll go, okay, we're all going to make the sound together. And because we're not in, because we as the circle are not in the space she's in, where she's the one that's kind of like, oh God, I'm right in it. I'm in the vulnerability of it. I'm the one like really exposed and trying to find this place. We're all more maybe in a kind of like, okay, you know, we can support my sister. It's easier for us to make a sound in that moment. So we all start making a sound, and her sound initially can be held within the sound of the circle. So she can find the courage to make that first sound without it being like, oh my God, that was really loud and it's really quiet everywhere else. It's like her sound is carried. And then as she finds her sound, the other sisters start to just sort of bring their voices down so that she then can be really, really celebrated in her sound. Now, if I stayed with her and just said, come on, you can do that sound, it's like there's a good chance she would have found it incredibly difficult to get there. So that's an example of how we can support each other.
Right.
You know, and there's so many ways, even that thing of, you know, in the lockdown or, you know, in this sort of place of isolation, let's just get together and go for a walk. Let's just listen to each other, you know, because I know deep down you're feeling similar things to me. We might have really different life stories, different patternings, different coping mechanisms, but underneath this longing to be who we really are as women is the thread that weaves through all. Yeah. So this togetherness is so important. And of course it's not straightforward, because we've had 6,000 years of being trained to compete with each other, to betray each other. And from the mother line, not having been mothered, then not knowing how to mother, not knowing how to, you know, it's like the betrayal and the mistrust runs really, really deep. So it's all going, yeah, my sister, you know, and maybe at first it feels really, yeah, get together with my sister and I feel really safe with her. But then there comes this point where it's like, well, do I feel safe with her? Actually, no, there's this tightening in my womb, in my belly, because actually there's this fear of betrayal. Yeah. There's this fear, this competition. I'm not enough. She's better than me, or I can't trust her. She's going to gossip behind my back. She's going to bitch. She's going to betray me in the end. She's going to shame me in the end. So we need to do that layer in order to get true, deep, authentic sisterhood, so that being with women truly does feel like a sanctuary, that truly does feel like sacred. And to get to that place takes a little bit of kind of conscious, deliberate movement. I mean, we can do it in our communities, and it's one of the things that we do on initiation. It's a big part of the journey, is journeying with those circle of women, and you know, and witnessing each other's journey, learning ways in which we can encourage each other and really get each other's hands on each other's back in an authentic way, and believe in each other. And go, yeah, you can do it. And in this moment, you're doing it for me. I can't do it, but you're doing it for me right now. Thank you. That's got me one step closer. I can't do it right now, but you're doing it. Thank you. That's got me one step closer.
Yeah. Wow. So I know that you do circles with women. Do you have an online program where you do that, or are all yours in person?
Well, this is the interesting thing. I have always worked in person, because the thing is, we're talking about embodiment work.
Right. Yeah.
We're talking about energy. We're talking about feminist. We're talking about nature. We're talking about the land. We're talking about everything to do with connection beyond words. And in the lockdown, I attempted to do this online with the women. I mean, I'm not saying nothing good came out of it, but
not the same.
It just didn't cut it. It just did not cut it. And I made a vow, I will not do this work online. Not this work, this women's work, this deep work. It's okay to do a little bit of kind of, you know, touching in. So no, this year-long initiative, it's 13 moon training. It's over a year. It's on the land here at Earth Heart in the forest where I'm speaking to you from now. And we meet over 5 days. We're on the land. We're round the fire. We're sitting under the stars. We're in the forest. We're with the water. We're with the river. We're with the spring. We're with the fire. And we're using everything we can to like help us to find that place. And we're with each other. And we are got tools on what we do when we get triggered and activated by each other, because inevitably that's going to happen. It's kind of crazy to think that it wouldn't, you know, but once they have these tools, then we can start to really go deep and really bring through this feral wildness and support each other in it, because we're not terrified of the conflict.
Right. That's so beautiful. So your advice to our listeners would be find a circle. Right.
Find a circle, and that's probably your existing circle of friends. You know, now of course, you know, I'm very embedded in the forest. I'm one of your kind of typical stereotype feral women with moss in my hair and mud on the thing, but you know, that might not be your thing, but you're gonna have a circle of friends who you feel that resonance with. And at first you might think, oh, but I couldn't have Sarah and Louise in the same group because they kind of come from different worlds and they're sort of a bit different. Try it out. Because the thing about the women's circle is it can go beyond that. And the other thing that is so important, which I really want to name here, is we have to, if we want to talk about authentic sisterhood, it has to be inclusive of diversity. It has to be inclusive of women of color, of all race, of all culture, of all sexual orientation, of all identity, you know. So I'm talking a lot about women here, and I'm using the word women and I'm using the word feminine, but this is, you know, this is the kind of old school language that we're in, but this is, you know, anyone, this is applicable to anyone who's got a womb, energetic or physical, who identifies with these, what I'm calling feminine qualities. And I know there's other words that we could use to point to that, but feminine is, yeah. So this is really important, that we find a way to break those down. And as white women, really look at where we keep reaching for the safe white circles. Because it's comfortable there and it's easy there. And we go, oh, yeah, of course I'd welcome in any women of color. Of course I would, you know. But actually, what are we actually doing that truly actually welcomes them in? And they're things that we're not even aware of, that we wouldn't even occur to us, because we're like, well, yeah, of course she can come on over. But looking at it through her eyes, what are all the things that are in, that we do automatically, that we don't even think about, that alienates a woman of color, that inherently makes her feel unwelcome? And that is such an important fundamental part of this. And it is inherently linked to this feral stuff I'm talking about. It is inherently linked to the environmental stuff. It's inherently linked to breaking down everything that's happened over the last few thousand years. And we as white women have such a responsibility at this time to really look at our own unconscious biases, our own like internal racism, and of course, you know, it's like, oh, but I'm not racist because I got a black girlfriend. It's like, just because I got a black girlfriend doesn't mean that, you know, because I don't even, you know, I'm probably not even aware of the ways that I am, you know. Until I started doing that work, I had no idea. It was shocking, and I had to really face a lot of shame, a lot of yeah, but, you know, in myself, and really go to a very deep place inside myself and feel a level of pain that was unbearable about how I had hurt people of color my whole life, without even realizing. So I'm really passionate about that, that if we're talking about the reclaiming of the feminine, it cannot be through white circles of women sitting together, offering work to more white women. It's got to be genuinely, authentically inclusive. It can't be tokenism. It can't be sort of, oh, well, I get a couple of women of color in and that's me, tick the box. You know, we've got to do that inner work. And that is inherently a part of that year training, that we look at that, because, you know, I can't be a part of anything now that doesn't inherently look at that. It just feels like a betrayal.
Absolutely. Jules, thank you. Thank you for what you're planting on the planet with all that you do. Thank you for what you've shared with us today. If folks want to reach out to you, I'm assuming they can get to you through your website.
Yep.
All right.
www.juleswingfield.com. I have to remember that for a minute. My website.
And
the
I know
initiation program, is the leadership program.
Right. Reach out to Jules. What a huge wisdom keeper you are. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your heart and soul with us as often as you do.
Thank you.